The brofist to all! It's Monday, which means the week has restarted, and most people's weeks that they booked off on Mr. Pandaria have now run out, and everybody's back in work. Oh, the fucking pain of returning from a gamer's lifestyle of sitting at home all day in our filth and our fucking dirty underwear and our socks, which have lasted for a week, just playing games over and over again. I personally was glad Monday rolled around. Yesterday I decided I was not going to turn my PC on. No, I had done too much over the week. I literally felt like not logging into WoW, which is never cool. Although I wanted to. There was things in my head I wanted to do, but I didn't want to log into WoW. I just like, I need a day. I need a day. I've had no sleep. I've been playing WoW constantly, and if I'm not playing WoW, then I'm editing things constantly to do with WoW. And it was just like, okay, let's take a day. And we went walking. We went walking in a wonderful park called Tinsdale Hill. We took Ben for a walk for about an hour and a half. Beautiful forest. Had a great time. It was a wonderful weekend. I hope you guys also enjoyed your weekend before returning to work, college, school, whatever it might be that you tried to avoid during Mr. Pandaria week. Today's going to be a little bit ranty. I'm going to get a little bit ranty. Yes, I am. For those of you wondering where the Arms Warrior video up, well, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's already up, so you don't need to worry. But those in the live chat who are like, where's the Arms video? It's uploading now. I had some issues with it. These guides are kind of important to me and to the channel because they're going to last a long time. And there's a lot of new people coming into the channel as these new guides come out because they're all like, hell, where do I find out about the new shit? And therefore, I'm just looking around to make sure they're as crisp and as polite as they can be. And we've run into various issues with just the first couple of guides, which sort of got me thinking about stuff, and I started looking around at various sources, and then I started getting emails from what I can only dub as competitors for what I do, which is relaying good, solid WoW information back to you guys so you can improve your play. Everybody has their own different take on what a YouTube video should enthrall. Some people love big crits, smash things in the face. When I say big crits, I mean a large critical strike and not the guild big crits, because Lord knows any other reference to big crits refers to that guild specifically. You know who you are. And some people like really nice montages. Some people love PvP. Some people love PvE. Someone wants to see a raid boss get smashed to pieces. But everybody wants to play better, which is where I try and go in there somehow and help you guys out. Today I'm going to rant. In terms of gaming news, before I rant, gaming news, there isn't any. Gaming companies aren't that stupid to release anything decent close to a Blizzard WoW expansion. If you're wondering why there's no big game releases this week or next, that's why. Businesses aren't that stupid. They want people to play. That's fucking why. There is no other explanation for it needed. Simple as. You have 11 million people playing a brand new game and they're all playing. Probably worth leaving your game for a couple of weeks and then releasing it. So that's all fine and dandy. That's what's going on there. Okay. Oh, and another thing I want to talk about before I get into this rant is I've been doing a lot of the professional stuff today while I was rendering out videos. I'm sort of on the fence with reputations now a little bit, which is good. It gives me a chance to change my opinion somewhat. At first, I hated the reputation grind. I thought it was pathetic. I thought it was falsely designed, elongated content, providing longevity to the game in a very roundabout, simple, lazy manner, daily quests. I still somewhat believe that, especially in terms of being able to acquire Justice Points gear, Valor Points gear. I completely disagree with any form of reputation grind involved in that. The fact that we have to grind those points to spend in the first place is more than enough sacrifice to acquire the gear. Reputation on top of that is just a pain in the ass, quite frankly. So I started toying around with reputations. It's something I'd ignored since I capped, purely because I was busy doing other things. But today I was with Genji, good long friend of mine who has capped now. He finally capped, and he's very into finding out minute details about stuff. Brilliant friend to have, especially in a game like World of Warcraft. He's very, very into finding out minuscule, tiny little details. Really the minor stuff. And finding out about it and then explaining it to me, people like me who want the overall picture. I love the overall picture. I don't like minuscule tiny details. I don't want to spend 20 minutes of a video discussing slight variations of, say, a Mortal Strike press compared to another one. Genji loves that stuff. He really likes the minuscule tiny details. I want the big picture, which will enable me and other people to perform extremely well. Other people like the little details. So Genji has been heavily investing his time into checking out the reputations and doing various things with them and testing out different things and exploring little tiny areas, talking to a lot of NPCs which don't have quest icons above them. How often do we do that? I know in World of Warcraft, I never do that. Unless there is a speech bubble or a quest or something related with that NPC, I don't speak to them. Because I assume they don't do anything. Genji likes doing that. He'll talk to everybody. What a social guy. What a guy. He'll go out there and speak to all these guys. And in doing so, discovered various little things, such as hidden daily quests, which I didn't know existed until Mr. Genji pointed them out to me, and he went, did you know that if you do this, you get an extra daily quest? I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, I found this out completely by accident by speaking to an NPC I had nothing to do with, but I found an extra daily quest. And you can only get this daily quest when you have certain items in your inventory. So he showed me. And then we found a couple of others and things like that. It was brilliant. One of the best things I'm finding about Reputation is that they're not all needed. That's brilliant. That is the best news ever. And some of them are just complete fun. Also, the fact that you can get the best rewards that are character important at Revered and not Exalted is also a brilliant little twist. The only drawback, of course, is the coins. The coins thing in giving you increased chance to gain items is still pushing people to do a lot more dailies than they might want to or need to. Very much against that little system. One of the things that struck me today that I'm actually super excited about and is really possibly the stupidest thing I've been excited about in World of Warcraft for ages is the cooking stuff. I was very wary of the cooking stuff. If anybody watched the live stream where I was shooting a couple of clips and me and Blubzar were playing around with cooking, I was kind of like, this is really weird, but I didn't put a final judgment on it because I hadn't done it yet. But we were trying it out, we were testing, we were doing the little quests and stuff. And I was like, this is interesting, but I don't know if it's good, which is always interesting for me more so. It's more interesting for me if I find myself interested in what I'm doing, but I don't know the reward. I never look to the back page. I try not to find out what every item on a loot table is. I don't read what bosses do. I never do. Anybody who watched me raid new content in Mr. Pandaria knows I did not read what the bosses did before we pulled it. I like that. I like that. I don't know what's at the end of all my reputation grinds. There's some of them that we do, and we don't know why we're doing them. That intrigues me. Lots of people are out there doing every single daily quest and reputation they can. They don't really know what the ultimate reward is. They don't know. These things exist. You should do your reputations is a comment that's flying around. So we're going doing them. We don't really know why. Or if it's good, or if it's worth our time. We don't know. We're just going doing them. We're going doing Angler's quests. You get a hat, a pole. Is it worth it? I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. We can't unlock the Shadow Pan until we do something else. And what's the Black Prince all about? I don't know. But I like it. I like that I don't know. It might be like the Firelands dailies. Firelands dailies, what happens when we unlock everything? Surely something happens. Because it can't just be the opening of the third vendor. That would suck, right? And what happens? Nothing happens. Sure, I can deal with that disappointment for the next hour or so of being like, fuck the Firelands dailies, I'm never doing them again. But all the way there, I had that wonderful anticipation that there might be something really cool waiting for him at the end. And I'm feeling that a little bit with reputations. Cooking particularly really interests me. I want to know what the end game of the cooking stuff is. Because it's interesting. And it's not all spelled out in stone. I love that you get your own farm. Hell, I've got my cabbages and... what else have I got planted? I've got my cabbages and some carrots, I think. Or maybe some watermelons. I've planted those and I'll be ready to pick them tomorrow. Really excited about that. Should be thumbs up to get all my stuff done. But I like that we got our own little farm. And I can kind of predict what the end game will be there. Is that every day we can visit our farm, collect our winnings, and just keep producing raid food without ever having to farm again. We literally plant our stuff and the next day we'll get a whole bunch of raid food and utility food. Whatever the hell we like will just sprout from the ground. I love that. I think that's a brilliant idea. There was nothing worse than going fishing for an hour. Oh my god. Fishing for an hour? Killing tigers to get their meat? Ugh. So boring. Now we can plant it. And ultimately we'll have our own farm. What will be the ultimate end game of that? I don't know. I really don't know. Just 300 buff food? Maybe. Maybe it's just 300 buff food. Maybe we get some extra tools. Maybe we can plant some crazy things. I don't know. I'm not into the very mini-game style of it, such as your runty one, your runty watermelon, where you have to grab it and jump, like a little pogo stick and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, but I find that pretty cool. Okay, let's rant. Let's rant a little bit, shall we, for today's show. I want to talk about Simcraft. Simcraft. What is Simcraft? Does anybody know what Simcraft is? I'm sure you do. I'm sure most of you know what Simcraft is. Simcraft is a variation of things. There are a lot of Simcraft programs out there. There are lots of them. They're all various things. What Simcraft does is it simulates the game. And you plug in your stats, your character. You create your character in the Simcraft program, and it then simulates the game as best it can. And it produces you results. Some of the results and some of the programs are, this is what your theoretical DPS should be. Note the word theoretical. It then says, you should reforge this way, you'll have a DPS increase. You should do this, you should do that. Various Simcraft results pop out of this thing that you plug your data into. For the longest time, Simcraft has been something controversial amongst a lot of the top-end raiders I have played with. Some of the best people in the world, they detest Simcraft. This is becoming more apparent now, and for various reasons, Simcraft is creating a lot of problems for people. There are different types of people in the world. Let me make a gross generalization that really isn't as accurate as I could possibly make it, but let's just put this on a scale. Beginning, end. Thinkers. People who consider things, calculate things. Statisticians, mathematicians. They work things out numbers-wise. However, the thinkers don't really play the game that much. They're not endgame raiders. They're very, very good at the mathematics of the game, the mechanics of the game, the numbers of the game. The other end, we have the doers. These guys don't give a shit about the numbers. They charge in head first, and they run all the time. They're always playing the game. They're always doing something in the game. They're always raiding. They're always fighting something. They're always doing something, but they don't really understand the numbers in between. Right in the middle are the people who are a bit of both. I like to call these people ballers, and for reasons that I will explain shortly. They are doers. They're playing the game. They're raiding. They're PvEing. They're exploring the game. They're PvPing, and they also understand the numbers behind what's going on, and they also understand how their class works and synergizes with the doing. Very similar to my workshops on how to do effective DPS. Knowing your class is one thing. Knowing the boss is another. Knowing how they work together is the sweet spot. Okay? So why does this relate to Simcraft? Well, a lot of the people in the Simcraft world, not all by any means, are more on the thinker side of things, or are somewhere close to the middle. They tend not to be, and this again isn't everybody. A lot of people who help with the Simcraft stuff are actually very high players. Just Lancel, Fisk. If you don't know who those people are, it doesn't matter, but understand that they are in very top guilds, and they also love their numbers as well. So these guys work out things like, what is the best spec? For me, Simcraft is useful for one thing and one thing only, or was, previous to Mists of Pandaria. What is the current best spec for your class in general? What Simcraft cannot do, completely flat out cannot do, it cannot take into account an actual boss fight. If we're doing a Simcraft on DPS, it assumes that this boss is stood still. Spot a problem already? Good. It assumes you have 100% uptime on that boss and have no need to move away from it. Spot a problem already? Good. And then it kicks out data. So previous, we could say we're a warlock. Here's my gear. Here's the destruction spec, the affliction spec, and the demonology spec. Demonology comes out on top. Easy as that. For me, that is where the usefulness of Simcraft begins and ends. Mists of Pandaria has completely flipped this up and created a whole bastard load of issues with working out stuff like what is the best spec. Here is the answer to you. There really isn't one, especially for classes who have multiple DPS specs. We're in a new time, people, A new and exciting time. Blizzard has done something they haven't realistically been able to achieve ever. They've pretty much balanced most of the DPS specs. And they're all very, very close. Even the ones that are in your own talent trees. On top of that, they've then added a new layer. Previously, we could say something like, what is the best talent spec? Because that is all we roll in. What is the best glyph? When we've got glyphs that gave us flat damage increases or critical strike chance increases, very easy to calculate. If I take this glyph, I have an extra 2% chance to crit. How does that affect me? I have an extra 10% damage on this spell. I can only cast that spell a certain number of times. How does that affect me? Very easy, right? We can't do that easily anymore. Let's take a warrior, for example. We've done those guides recently. What is the best spec for a Fury warrior? When we talk about spec now, we talk about the talent trees. Well, we have a number of combinations now. We've got Dragon Roar, we've got Shockwave, we've got Bladestorm. On top of that, we could also have Bloodbath, we could have Avatar, we could have Stormbolt. On top of that, we've then got the spec to consider. We could be Arms. Arms has a whole different way of playing, but it's pretty close. In fact, they're in about 3% of each other. That's fucking close. So, now it's come down to a new situation where we cannot definitively, in a lot of cases, put a number to what the hell is going on. We can't do it. This is driving people who love numbers and a definitive answer fucking crazy. And my email inbox is being spammed like there is no tomorrow. Here's the answer. There really isn't one. And this is also driving mad my competitors. I see this as a really good thing. One of the things I always try and instill in you is there is no such thing as a rotation. There isn't. You need to think about it. You need to consider things. And now we introduce common sense. Common sense means you take what you can from the numbers and then you apply it to the game and then you say, huh, now the numbers tell me this, but in game I'm seeing something completely different. Why is that? And then a lot of people, the majority of people, want an answer from somebody else. A lot of people love to be told what to do. As sad as some people might find it, and as much as people don't like to accept that, they absolutely love it when somebody else tells them what to do. For a number of reasons. One, they're on their way. They've got the answer. They haven't had to do much for it. How do I do this? This is how you do it. Job done. Also, the path of blame doesn't begin and end with them. Well, I only did this because of him. They told me what to do. It's very easy to see why. Plus, it is the simplest solution. And as we know, a lot of people prefer the simplest solution. What is the simplest solution to this problem is to ask somebody for the answer. Take your maths exam. How many people said, what did you get for that? Well, I got what I got. What did you get? Oh, no. I just want to know. What's the answer to number 5? Well, that is the easiest solution, isn't it? Rather than working out the methodology and the mechanics of how to arrive at the answer, ask somebody for the answer. Easy! It's much easier, isn't it? I love this, because this is going to promote my videos into helping you guys make decisions for yourselves based on what the fuck you are doing. No longer do we live in a time where we can say, combat is the overwhelmingly best spec. It's just not so anymore. It's slightly ahead on this boss. But on this boss, assassination's better. Then we come into an even deeper situation. Combat is still the best at this boss, but it's combat with this. It's with the faster redirect. It's with Shadow Step. It's with preparation. It's with this. It's with that. It's getting the extra 2 combo points. It's the better DPS spec. This is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Who's it not wonderful for? The people who live and die by the numbers. People who live and die by the numbers are in a whole world of shit right now. And I get a lot of information from people saying, look at this situation. In this situation, you are wrong, preacher. Yeah. That's the point. That's the whole point of the new system. We have a new balanced system, but your numbers are theoretical. Your theoretical numbers do not apply. One instance of this that recently came up was on the comments, YouTube comments, where some warrior who's very into his numbers, I slagged off moaned at Shockwave, I believe, or was it Bladestorm? One of the two. And he said, hey, if you have to AoE 20 mobs or 30 mobs every few seconds, every like 60 seconds or something like that, This spell pulls ahead of what you've said. Right? When the fuck does that ever happen? Are you fucking kidding me? When does that ever happen? It doesn't. Doesn't matter how much mathematical prowess you put into these situations and say, well, I understand what you're saying, but in this situation, it works. I'm glad. And when that situation comes up, we'll all respect a shockwave. But what I'm saying right now is you need to apply some common sense to it. It's useless information. It's not relevant, it's not helpful. And we need to get more people to move away from the numbers. Simcraft is something that is really hurting a lot of people right now because they're trying to find a definitive answer to a question which doesn't have a definitive answer. The answer isn't out there. It now depends on a boss-to-boss stasis. What was I about to say then? A boss-to-boss situation. I'm going to say that word. A boss-to-boss situation. I don't know what fucking word I was going to say. And it was fucking crazy. So, a boss-to-boss situation. It really depends every time now. Again, looking at warriors, sometimes Glyph of Sweeping Strikes will be a huge DPS increase. Simcraft will tell you that it isn't. But your common sense is about to shine through and say, you know what? In this situation, it is. So what? And people who live and die by the numbers will never respec. This is the ultimate crux of this. Through Cataclysm, I ran into a number of people who did not understand that sometimes you have to just think about what you're doing. It happened to me when I was raiding Ragnaros Heroic 25. In Ragnaros Heroic 25, our methodology, which could never be simcrafted, so the numbers couldn't be taken. You can't take the numbers from this situation, was to drop all the elementals that fly in, the molten elementals, into one spot as a raid. Then we moved further away, and then we AoE'd them down. Now, as a Frost DK, I had the simcrafted best spec. But as a baller, I realised that I should drop 1 point from something else and put it into extra range for my Howling Blast. Guess what? Guess who destroyed the DPS compared to the other DK, who refused to believe me that this was a worthwhile choice. It's a worthwhile choice because now you have the extra range. As easy as that. So simple. So simple and common sense. But the Simcraft would never point to that situation because it can't simulate it. It cannot simulate what range your guild kills certain things. Cho'Gall Heroic was where I first used this. We have warriors leaping over the back, creating big piles of ads. And then we had to kill them. I had a choice as a Frost DK. I could run away from the boss and start spamming Howling Blast and Death and Decay. And then run back to the boss to DPS. By switching 1 point into having extra range on my Howling Blast, I didn't have to move at all. I could do maximum AoE and earlier AoE than I could have done with a normal spec, doing tons more damage than the other Death Knights around me, and then instantly be back on the boss. I picked up hundreds of thousands of extra DPS with a simple talent point switch that no Simcraft program could ever tell me. Another thing is for tanking. We've run into the huge debate which is raging everywhere. This is such an interesting time. Everything is in flux. Everything is up and down like a bloody yo-yo. It's like a wave of information. Sometimes people are agreeing that this is better, and then down here that this is better. You know what the answer is? They're both pretty fucking good. And it depends on what the hell you're doing. Trying to assign a place for each of these things is never going to work. The endless shield barrier, shield block argument. I say shield barrier is better. Why? Common sense tells me it's better. Simcraft tells you that in some situations I might add, that shield block is better. Well, there's the answer. They both have their place, but only a really advanced player would really know how to use them. If you're a basic getting into things, you are not going to be too far wrong just using shield barrier. Hence why I recommend it in my guide. In nearly 80% of cases, you will be better with shield barrier. What can Simcraft not do to generate this? Why can I take some common sense from this situation to apply it to it? Simcraft cannot simulate a fully active raid environment per boss. Can't do it. It can simulate a boss whacking my tank. That's it. There are very little bosses that do that. Very few. There's always some kind of magical AoE damage going on around me. There's always some sort of ads flying in. There's always something else that needs to be done. There's tank switching. There's magical debuffs on me. There's all sorts of crazy crap going on that a simulation program cannot replicate. Ergo, when I see a spell that blocks all damage over just physical damage, in the long run, I know I will be better. Especially when it comes to the pure physical damage, that they're pretty fucking close anyway. My common sense tells me that will be better. And I will be fine, and you guys will be fine. Where are we going with this? What is the ultimate end game? It's a huge change for all of us. Some of you will realise how dramatic this change is that we cannot set in stone something like a best spec or the best talents. We cannot set in stone. A lot of players have been spoon-fed, essentially, the best spec. How often do you see people look up other players and just copy their talents exactly? Throughout Cataclysm, one of the main problems I dealt with was literally players who would copy talent specs and have no idea how it worked. But they saw that a top player was using that spec. More often than not, I saw top players who would randomly change spec for pure fun, or would log out in random gear and baffle and befuddle so many people. Well, this guy's using that spec. I should use that spec. Did you read any of the talents? No. I don't know what to do with it. I have no idea. It's like me going out and buying a Mac. I have never used a Mac in my fucking life. I have a general idea of a Mac. It's like a computer, right? My Mac turns up. I don't know what to do with it. I tried using Andy's Mac once. I could barely click anything. It was driving me mad. I couldn't work out where's my right mouse button. I just couldn't get it. It's the same thing. It's just copying something and then saying, I don't know what to do with it. So we had all this problem in Cataclysm. Now we've moved it on. We've taken that a step further to the point where we are changing talents on a boss by boss basis, and sometimes changing spec on a boss by boss basis. Just looking at Warriors alone, there are some fights that are destroyed by using the Fury spec. Then there are fights that you destroy by using the Arm spec, but by switching the Arm spec and using a different glyph, and so on and so forth. So many combinations of events that cannot be simulated, which is creating genuine issues for a lot of people who are used to having the definitive answer. What is the answer? What's the most common question I get asked all the time? What is the best spec? What is the top DPS? What is this definitive final answer? That's the kind of thing that a Simcraft program will kick out. What is the best way of doing this in an environment that is not relative to what an actual fight is like? A classic encounter like this happened with a guy called Tun. Tun was a feral druid in Nihilum. Nihilum was one of the most prolifically advanced guilds in all of World of Warcraft. You remember it was Kungan's guild. Kungan, I'm sure you've seen, has recently started replaying World of Warcraft, and yes, your emails are letting me know that has happened are fine. It makes no difference to me what Kungan is doing now. I don't care. But that was at the time that guild was leaps and bounds ahead of the competition for a variety of reasons. One, they realised things like we can flask a whole raid, something that hadn't been considered for ever. It had never been considered. When we saw screenshots of a whole raid flasked, for those of us who were following the world first race, we were like, how the fuck did you get that many flasks? A raid of 40 people all flasked? That is insanity. But we saw it. Really pushed the envelope to what we consider the standard these days. We consider it the standard way of doing things. We would never raid a progression raid these days without having everybody flasks. Hell, we've got cauldrons that allow you to do it. We've got feasts which allow you to food buff the entire raid. No problem, no questions asked. So, Tun was a feral druid. And the website Elitist Jerks, I'm sure many of you have heard of Elitist Jerks, proposed a number of feral theories. This is more the thinker's side of things. I don't recall anybody being particularly practical in the feral druid thread. I apologise if there was. I don't remember there being one. I used to follow it because I was a feral druid at the time. This was during the Burning Crusade. Or was it Wrath of the Lich King? It was Wrath of the Lich King, actually. Yes, Wrath of the Lich King. I was a feral druid, so I used to follow this thread. And there was a huge debate about Ferocious Bite. If you don't know what Ferocious Bite is, it's very simple. It's a 5 combo point finisher for feral druids. And the maths suggested that you should be able to, with perfect simulated play, this is what the Simcraft was kicking out, that you should be able to fit in a Ferocious Bite every 3 attacks. For the fucking life of me, I could not get that to be a DPS increase. Every time I did it on my feral druid, I felt a downtime that was not nice. It wasn't comfortable. I didn't enjoy it. One of the things I was trying to tell you about DPSing is play the simple rules and let everything else fall into play. If you're a feral druid, you want to keep Rake and Rip on and Savage Raw. That's your goal. That's your goal. That's it. That's what the top players are doing. If you can fit more in, fine. The rest of it comes down to your actual play. Can you hear the squeaky toy? Can you hear the squeaky toy? Just tell me if you can hear the squeaky toy. Oh, funny. Okay, good. Good. Thank you for saying you would rather have Ben. So on Elitist Jerks, it proposed that you could, in fact, do this maneuver. I did it. I tried it. I didn't like it. I stopped doing it. Tung had never posted on Elitist Jerks and decided to because he was very unhappy that this post existed. And he was the most progressed feral druid in the world. There was nobody more PvE progressed than he was. So he said, you're wrong. In theory, it can be done. The simulation craft says it can be done. Fine. In practice, it cannot be done. It's a DPS loss because of various issues. Just based on the fact that the real gaming world does not work like a simulation craft. You don't just get to stand behind a mob for 5 minutes and just DPS it. It doesn't happen. So what you're suggesting is a DPS loss. Energy comes back at random rates for a fucking start. Blah, blah, blah. And he was banned from the Elitist Jerks website for not backing up his numbers with, backing up his theory with numbers. There was no numbers behind it, and he was berated and destroyed. And they banned him from the forums. And he wrote a blog. He was like, fuck you guys. I know I'm right. I do this every day. I have the best DPS in the world. I have the best DPS in the world. And you guys are telling me I am wrong because you have a simulation craft. Your numbers are being kicked out by a program which does not relate to anything that happens in the fucking game in the slightest. It's a completely fictional situation. I'm telling you I'm right. Months down the line, he was right. And someone said, you know, now we've reached the level he's at with the gear you should have. It doesn't fucking work. The simulation craft says it works, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. Practical life just doesn't occur. A simulation craft can never take into account movement, ads, mechanics, having to move away from the boss for some explosion. Anything like that, which is going to happen a lot to you guys next week when you start raiding Mists of Pandaria. So I just want to get out there. The summary of this little situation is if you are an avid follower of simulation crafts and you use them a lot, you need to pull it back a little bit because there are now so many combinations and it's come down to pure common sense in essence. They've balanced the DPS respectively. Some talents are worse than others. They are. That's flat out okay. That's fine. What you need to stop doing is looking for the definitive answer to an overall question, which is what is the best. It's changing all the time and you cannot possibly predict that. So if you're very into your numbers, hold it back a bit. Take back the information you need. What is currently the best overall spec? Fine. But consider your other specs when you come into it. If you need to do permanent cleave, Arms is going to be better than Fury. But your simulation craft says Fury is better. But it isn't. It isn't. It's not. It just isn't if you're doing this situation. It's not. It's going to be an interesting time for other guides. A lot of people are getting confused, upset by this lack of definitive answer. And it doesn't exist anymore. It's a weird time for World of Warcraft, and I really like it. I like it because it's forcing a lot of people to think about what they're doing, to read their talents. It's so important to read the talents. If you've ever seen the South Park Human Scent iPad, you'll know how important it is to read what the hell is going on. Just take 2 seconds to read the 3 lines of text. Oh, that's how that works. Okay. And we'll have a better time from it. Oh, okay. I've got a question I want to answer, and I'll take any questions from the live audience. It's the end of my rant for today. There won't be a rant tomorrow. Oh, Ghost has left now. Okay. Bye. I love being able to do that. So fun. I'm catching up with all the personal messages you guys have sent me. This question I found interesting because it's something I do, and I also never really considered if it was helpful or not. Helping healing as a tank. Not something every tank can do. In fact, only realistically a paladin can do, via Word of Glory and so forth. Hello, I have a question. This is from Dark Chasm. Dark Chasm, that sounds sexual in a way. I'm a prop pally that sometimes helps healers out in healing the other party members, even myself, whether it's 5-mans or heroics, or even in raids. My question is it actually helping me being a better tank or hurting it? I'd like to hear this one, the Daily Preach, if possible. Thank you. Well, let's address it then. You asked a question I hadn't really considered. I always ask myself, does it help the group or raid? That is a very simple answer. Yes, obviously. If you feel that somebody needs a heal and doesn't appear to be getting topped up quick enough and is at risk of dying, certainly, then healing them is the correct choice, obviously. The same as putting bop on people, or hop as it's called now, or hoff. The hoff? Giving someone the hoff? I kind of need to make a macro now for Hand of Freedom that says, here comes the hoff. I don't know why. Hoff and things like that. Hoss, Hand of Sacrifice, all this kind of, Hand of Salvation that could be as well. But again, Hand of Salvation, not that that's particularly relevant these days. But healing people who need healing is of course helpful. Is that hurting your tanking? A couple of aspects of this. One, it hurts you in terms of DPS, for sure. And maybe even survivability, because you're using holy power to do that now, which is of course meaning you're not using a shield of the righteous, which is of course now not allowing you to keep up your block debuff, and so on and so forth. You're actually risking taking a lot more damage by healing somebody else. In that respect, it's hurting your tanking, isn't it? It is. It's not something I've relatively considered in the past, and that's why I found this question pretty fucking interesting. Is healing somebody else with holy power expenditure is actually not a great thing for you to do anymore, especially in Mr. Pandaria. You do actually sacrifice more than maybe what that guy's life was worth in some situations. Blocking a lot of attacks as a holy prop paladin is very important. Obviously comes down to the timing. Sometimes it won't matter in the least. That's fine, I fully accept that. But in a dangerous situation, trying to help everybody is a bad thing. You shouldn't always try and help everybody. There are people assigned to do that job. But if you feel it's safe, then yeah, it's a good thing to do. Is it hurting your tanking in terms of DPS? It is, and we are moving closer and closer to a point where tanks are being considered a DPS. I kind of understand this as well. It makes bosses easier to balance, considering that tanks are actually doing some DPS. Kind of makes tanks a little bit strong for me. It kind of makes them a multi-role sort of class, and I get a lot of tanks asking me questions about focusing on DPS. As an old school, old saggy balls tank, I really dislike it. That wasn't the tank's role. I don't like that tanks are not only there to survive and generally keep the boss aggroed and the raid from wiping, but they're also putting out sufficient damage that like competes with some DPSs. I don't like that. That's a dual role in my eyes. If that's where we're at, tanking has officially become far too easy. It has. It really has. We should tone vengeance down, make threat matter more. I would love to see threat matter again. I fucking love that. That'd be happy days. So in that respect, it's again hurting your DPS as well. Not that that should matter too much, but it might do in some of the raid content. It might do. I think the main thing that it's hurting as a prop paladin while you heal other people is risking defensive loss, loss of defensive ability. But it's really kind of minor, I guess. We generate holy power a lot. In 100 purest fact, yes. Should you still do it? Yes. Judging the time is right. Use a bit of common sense when you do it, especially in your 5-mans. Healing yourself in a 5-man, I used to do that all the time on my prop paladin. When they nerfed Word of Glory, I was so upset because I got some fucking god-awful healers, and I was basically healing myself through every heroic constantly with Word of Glory spam. Threat is such a non-issue that I was easily able to just Hammer of the Righteous things, Avenger's Shield, and just Word of Glory myself to life while healers were kind of drooling behind me. So I missed that. And I definitely felt a lot squishier when they removed that. Although it did sort of force a lot of healers to pick up their game a little bit. Instead of letting... I'm sure a lot of healers who are more heroic spammy than maybe I am saw a prop paladin and were like, oh, this guy can look after himself. I don't have to do shit. And just went and made a tin of beans or whatever they used to do. Which was pretty fucking interesting. So I thought it was, does it hurt you a lot? No, it's neither here nor there issue. It's more about your decision-making process. Let's have some questions. Let's have some questions, heroes, before we crack on with our day. The Arms Warriors videos, as I said, are coming up. Windowlickers. Hasselhoff and Saggy Balls, what have I missed? Boo! Shootums! Shootums gets the gold star as he prepared his question. Okay, now, can we not condense these questions down? My God. Shootums! I haven't read it before, so let's see what you're saying. Holla Preach. I got the news today that our guild will be having 2 raid teams. They want me in one with most people I don't know. The problem they want The problem, they want somebody who I haven't played with for the past 5 months. He's a rep paladin who's not even an officer, and I don't feel very comfortable with this. Oh, with someone who hasn't. Sorry, it was a mischievous eye thrown in there. They want me with someone who hasn't played for the last 5 months. He's a rep paladin who is not even an officer, and I don't feel vastly comfortable with this. Moreover, the GM has basically set up the team for the second team already. I'm an officer and I want to volunteer for raid leader as a resto druid. Should I try and give it a go, or should I try and tell the GM that I should get more authority in the guild, or should I leave the guild? I don't think you should leave the guild. It's a time of change. People who jump ship at times of change are pussies, is the first answer to that. People, when things are changing, I like to see it through and see what the hell's going on. And if I start getting a bad vibe further down the line, then I want to go. It's always interesting when people start fearing change. A lot of scaremongering goes on. You'll find this a lot in offices as well. Oh god, in offices it's the worst thing in the fucking world. Something changes in an office environment, you would think that literally the end of the world was coming. There's all sorts of drama and whispering going on. I have never been one for that. I couldn't give a shit. I like to see how things are playing out, and if I feel personally like it's a problem for me, then I leave. I've done it several times in the past. I have no problem leaving a job when I feel like it's not working for me. I like to help other people. I don't like to help people who won't help themselves. I consider people who are excessively prone to causing drama or cannot sort of think through a problem for more than 5 seconds as people who do not want to help themselves. Or they are so bored with their own lives, I'm getting all real life on you for now, are so bored with their own lives that they quite literally thrive off having something to talk about because they cannot talk about anything else. People who constantly talk about work are the instantaneous people who I dislike. You work with them, that's fine, that's cool. At work you should probably be talking about work amongst other things. And then you go for a drink with them and all they talk about is work. It fucks me off something shocking. It's like, really? Have you got nothing else? What are you really like? Or do you just live to work? A lot of people live to work. Even if the job is very mundane. They go home, they work all day, they go home, they complain about work, they go to bed, they get up in the morning, they go to work, they come home, they complain about work, they go to bed, they get up in the morning, they get ready, they go to work, they come home, they complain about work, and then they go to bed again. Wow. Not cool. Not cool at all. I fucking really dislike that. I fucking can't stand it. When change is occurring, people like to... change is happening, change is happening. Sometimes, I in the past jumped ship very early. So I was like, oh, I don't like that. On the face of it, I didn't like it. And then I left. Or did something that like moved me away from it. And further down the line, it actually turned out to be a good thing. And I was like, oh, I kind of wish I'd stuck around then. But then you're all too proud and shit. And you can't join back in. How many times have we done that in the past? Like, no, I don't want to be a part of that night out. It sounds like it's going to be shit. I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't like him. I'm not going. And then they come back and say, dude, we totally met Leonard Nimoy. And you're like, what the fuck? And I missed it? Yeah, you missed it. Oh, dude. Oh. And that can happen. It can happen a lot. This change might be really, really cool. It might be really, really cool. It might work out well. And now you've got an opportunity. This is what I really like about your question is you've seen an opportunity. Should I volunteer to be the raid leader? That's a question you have to answer yourself. I don't know. I don't know how good you are. I don't know if you're good with communication. I really don't know. I would say if you feel that you're good enough, if you genuinely feel that it's time that you do it, then do it. Regarding asking for more authority in the guild, any GM is going to see that as an attack on his position, and probably rightfully so. I don't know how someone would take up saying, I want more authority. Why? Do you feel I'm making bad decisions? Do you feel like I should be consulting you more? What makes you think I should give you bad authority? And not even as an ego attack, you know, as an attack on leadership. Even if you mean it completely innocently, I would take that as you're trying to run for GM here, and then I would crush you. I would crush you into small little fucking pieces. I'd be like, done, dusted. Get the fuck out of it. I wouldn't ask for just more authority. What does that even mean? What authority? Do you want authority over the guild bank? Go ahead. I can't be asked with the guild bank anyway. I don't know what that means. I would go for the raid leader thing. If you were asking me, it's because it's in your mind that you could probably do it. You could probably do it. Regards to the guy who's not played for 5 months, I don't care. Why do you care? He hasn't played for 5 months. So what? Nothing happened in the last 5 months. We had Dragon Soul for a part of that. Who cares? I wouldn't bother about that. I would just try and take an opportunity. If you're being moved and you're an officer into a different raid group, one, I would certainly be a little bit wary why you were chosen to be in a different raid, especially if, I'm totally guessing here, but if it's a situation where there's, say, 5 officers, 4 of them are in raid 1, you're in raid 2, why is that? Why am I the only officer in raid 2? If you're not, cool, go for the raid leader position. If you feel like you're capable of doing it, you should totally go for it. And you'll have a great time doing it. Especially as a healer, you should be fine. That's what I think you should be doing. More questions, more questions. Any more questions? Oh, God, it's warm. Yes, I'm taking questions. I'm going to take one more question because then we're taking Ben for a walk. How blue do my eyes look? I'm sexy as fuck right now. Not really. I'm in a hoodie. Do you think the LFR loot system should be implemented to Heroics 2? No. It depends how bad things get. We're sort of in a nice time right now, especially if you just hit level 90 or you hit level 90 last week. You feel like Ben knows when the end of the show's coming. Where most of the guys in the Heroics are quite reasonable. They tend to be the people who play harder or are looking to get into raiding and are not complete douches about loot. We haven't really reached the stage where people have capped alts and are just trolling Heroics, so it's quite nice now. I didn't have that bad a time in Cataclysm. Sure, once or twice some arsehole, some rogue looted a stamina trinket because he believed... This actually happened to me. A rogue took the stamina trinket from my tank in End Time, I believe, because he needed it for PvP because he always dies. That kind of stuff pisses me off, but I sort of don't feel angry as much as I just kind of like... I really want to help you, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can, you know. I really don't know if I can. Oh. It's not even a worthwhile troll. How do you... Yeah, okay, so Adelphia Gaming comes up with one here. How do you feel about Vengeance without a cap? I'm doing to 300k DPS as a tank on Eagles. Do you think this needs a nerf or a tweak? Blizzard's moving towards this methodology of having tanks be a DPS. I don't like it. I haven't liked it for a while. I haven't liked it since it started in Wrath of the Lich King. Yeah. This process has been coming from Wrath of the Lich King, so it's taken a long time to get to where we're at now. I don't like it. I don't like that tanks are reduced to a DPSer who also has to press shield wall and stuff. It's like you're the most frustrated DPSer, so you have to beat the mobs first. It's like you're the most anxious DPSer. Impatience was a great quality in a tank. Impatience was rife amongst DPS. Hell, we wouldn't have so many ninja pulls if it wasn't. And yeah, I don't like it. And now Vengeance is the way they're doing that, and it just feels like I can understand it's sort of easier to balance the raids, but I don't like it. But again, I'm an old school tank. I grew in World of Warcraft with the idea that we weren't a DPS class. Our DPS was horrific, and that was kind of a challenge because we had to make best use of our threat abilities. And it was great. It was brilliant. Pulling 2.5k TPS, threat per second, was immense. And tanks that could do that, which I could do and my other tank could do, made DPS life much easier. It was a much better synergy. A much greater synergy, a much greater pride, a much greater sense of achievement. But as we know, we're moving away from that kind of stuff, and now tanks are a sort of DPSer who needs to use their cooldowns in a different manner. Whereas a DPSer uses their cooldowns to do more damage, tanks are DPSers who use their cooldowns to survive more damage, and that seems to be about the difference at the moment. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like seeing my tank at the top of the DPS. It used to be if you saw the tank at the top of the DPS, you would rage wholeheartedly at the group. Now it's kind of expected. Tank at the top of the DPS, we don't care. We're doing tank dungeons basically with 1 healer and 4 DPS essentially. It doesn't make any fucking difference. Yeah, I don't like that. Okay. I don't like little things. I love the game. I love the game. I never give that impression. I don't like the vengeance of tanking. No, I prefer tanks to be a role in their own right. There is no similarity between a DPS and a healer. This game bases itself on the holy trinity of a tank, DPS, and a healer. The tank DPS role is slowly doing that. Besides the fact DPSers can't take as much damage, the rest of it's sort of being blurred together. Whereas healers are still completely unique. Tanking just doesn't feel unique as much as it used to, you know? And I don't like that. I like the uniqueness of the tank. But again, it's probably from my history. It's probably a better thing for the game, probably, that there's 4 DPSs. It makes heroics a lot easier. It's one of the ways they can combat heroics failing is because now you've got 4 DPSs. It doesn't matter if you're carrying 1 or 2 shitty DPSs anymore because you've actually got 4 and a healer. So let's just hope the healer doesn't go AFK, right? Then we're all in trouble. Alright, ballers, that's it for today. I'm going to take my Ben for a walk. The Arms Warriors videos are uploading. I hope you enjoy them. And I will see you tomorrow afternoon. Take it easy, heroes.